Hi there. My name is Jessica Reza, and I am so thankful that you are here with me watching this recording. This speech was originally given at the 2025 National Convention for the Holy Name Society, where I had the opportunity to speak on a topic that is very important to me. I am so grateful that you are tuning in and invite you to think about how this message shows up for you in your life. So let's get started. Let's get to know each other a little bit. I am a certified life and mental health coach through the NBHWC. I am a wife, a daughter, a friend, a volunteer, a mental health advocate, and most relevant to this speech here today, I am a Holy Name member. I am on the executive board for our parish, Mary Queen of Peace in Cleveland, Ohio. About 4 years ago now, my husband Joe and I had gotten married and we moved into our first place. And I get a call from my mom, and she said, "Hey, so I talked to Uncle Harold today, and he wants us to join the Holy Name Society, you, me, and Joey." And I said, Mom, I don't know. Things are kind of crazy right now with work, and we just moved in, and I just can't really commit right now." And she said, I know, but a couple more things. So there's actually only 6 members right now, and they're really looking for new people to join. And I said, "Oh, Mom, I get it, but also I cannot commit to this at this time." And she said, "Okay, okay." She said, "Did I also mention that Father Brown asked Uncle Harold to ask you and me and Joey if we'd join?" And at that time, I knew what had to be done. So the only thing I really knew at that point about the Holy Name Society was that there was some kind of bowling team. And I also knew that they did a lot of volunteer work at our church. But I remember my uncle talking about the bowling team. So, all right, I went to the first meeting and I was pleasantly surprised by what I found. Not only was the group kind, but they brought something different, each of them. Their main focus was to help in any way that they could while also rooting in their shared values. So I came at the request of my uncle and, of course, Father Brown, but I stayed because of the warmth, the community, and the support. And if I have learned anything in my time with the Holy Name Society, we are so much more than just members of the Holy Name Society. We are the Holy Name Society. We embody it everywhere we go, in the grocery store, in our communities. And yeah, even when someone cuts you off in traffic, we are still a representation of the group. And that is powerful. It holds some weight to it when you say that. So I think the big questions to be answered here today are: what does revitalizing the Holy Name Society mean? How can we do it? And why is it important? Now, those are big questions. They absolutely are. But questions, those are my thing. As a coach, I talk in questions. People say, "What?" Exactly. You're off to a great start. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? Well, as a coach, my goal is to help you elicit the change that you want to see in life to become the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. Whether that is a career change, a habit change, or maybe you aren't even sure. My role is to be your partner and use theoretical frameworks and evidence-based resources to help you get there with plenty of support along the way, of course. Now, the beautiful thing about my job is that I get the opportunity to hear people's story, not just what's already been written, but what they're hoping to write. What a pleasure it is for me to be there for those light bulb moments and those aha moments that happen when someone begins to believe in themselves just a little bit. or begins to see the possibility of the life that they want. Those moments are the catalyst for change. Now, change can be so many things. It can be something that is needed, it can be wanted, it can be prayed for, scary, quick, it can be gradual. But most of all, it's hard. And it can be D, all of the above. The truth about change is that it's a process with different stages and vantage points. So let's take a look at something called the trans-theoretical model of change, or stages of change. Now, this framework was originally created through research done in patients who were undergoing smoking cessation. The framework is one that I use every day in my work as it helps me understand where my client is and what could be helpful in helping them make progress. So, the first stage of change is the pre contemplation stage. This is the why bother stage. People here either don't see a problem with their behavior or maybe they've tried before and failed, so they feel hopeless. The thought of change isn't even on their radar. A person in this stage might say something like, "Stop smoking. Why? I've tried to quit a bunch of times and it never works. So what's the point?" Next, we have the contemplation stage. In this stage, the gears are starting to turn. So people are becoming more aware of the problem and are seriously thinking about making a change, but they haven't quite committed to it just yet. They're weighing the pros and the cons, and you might even hear them say something like, maybe I should quit smoking. I know I'd feel better, but I just can't really imagine my life without it. And then you have the preparation stage. This is where the planning begins. So people in this stage are getting ready to take action. They're making a plan. Maybe they're even taking some small initial steps. So they're thinking about how they are actually going to do it. For example, a person in this stage might say something like, "Okay, well, if I was gonna quit smoking, where would I start?" Well, I've been looking up some programs and I saw that they have one at work, so maybe I'll just investigate what that's about. And then you have the action stage. This is the big one. This is where the actual work happens. People are actively changing their behavior and putting in the effort to overcome those old habits. This stage, by far, requires the most time and energy. And a person might say something like, "I joined that program and I'm cutting back to just 2 cigarettes a day. It's tough, but I'm doing it." And then you have the maintenance phase. Now, the maintenance phase is the long haul phase. So, this is after all that work. This is a stage about keeping that change going for the long haul. The focus is on preventing relapse or slipping back into old ways. And while setbacks can happen, what really matters is how you recover. As the saying goes, it's not about the relapse, it's about how you bounce back. Now, how many of you have made a change in your life before? And how many of you have found yourself in one or maybe even all of these stages? Yeah, it's definitely relatable. So, as a coach, I help my clients make progress through these stages by overcoming the hurdles that keep them stuck. Well, what gets in the way, you might be asking? And I think the more appropriate question is actually what doesn't get in the way. These barriers can certainly be internal or also external. Some of the internal barriers are often the most difficult to overcome because they are deeply rooted in a person's thoughts, feelings, behaviors, habits. And one of those is fear: fear of the unknown, fear of failure, or fear of success itself can paralyze a person. Stepping out of a comfort zone or, even when it's an unhealthy one, can be terrifying. For example, a person might stay in a dead end job because the thought of looking for a new one and potentially failing is scarier than the current situation that they're in. Or what about a lack of motivation? If a person doesn't see the value or benefit in making a change, they won't have the drive to do the work. This can be due to sometimes a lack of having a clear goal, feeling hopeless, or even a sense that the effort that's required isn't worth the reward. Now, habit is also synonymous with comfort level. So, habits, whether they're good or bad, they're ingrained patterns of behavior. They feel safe and familiar. So, breaking a deeply rooted habit like smoking or procrastinating requires a great deal of conscious effort and energy. Now, the last one, self-talk. A person's inner dialogue can be such a barrier. Believing I can't do it or I'll just fail again can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Sometimes that inner critic can really get the best of us. Now, let's talk a little bit about external barriers. External barriers are a person's surroundings and can make the change process much harder. So, a lack of support is one. Friends, family, or sometimes lack of professional support can hinder that change process. Without a strong support system, it's easy to feel isolated and give up. Environment or triggers. The people and places in a person's life can constantly trigger old behaviors. For example, trying to quit drinking is a lot harder when you have friends that still meet at that local watering hole. Time, resources. Time is a very important resource. People often lack the time, money, or other resources needed to make a change. For example, joining a gym, taking a class, or seeking therapy all require both a financial and a time commitment that not everyone can afford. And then lastly, stress. Now, it's spelled stress here, but it really is a four-letter word called life. Unexpected events and stress, high levels of those stress can deplete a person's willpower and make them more likely to fall back on old, unhealthy coping mechanisms. Unforeseen crises like a job loss or a family emergency can also completely derail a change effort. Now, change is inherently uncomfortable because it forces us out of our comfort zone, a state of familiarity and predictability. And I'm going to prove it to you. Have you ever walked into church and there is someone sitting in your pew? That's your spot, right? Oh my gosh, that little immediate panic attack that you have. Where am I going to sit? Well, I can't sit there. That's where Bob sits. I can't sit there. That's where John sits. That feeling of discomfort, it's there. Or what about if you are the one that is sitting in someone else's pew? Now you're the pew thief. And you're going to get shot your way for the rest of Mass until the homily, where Father says, Love thy neighbor, and everyone softens a little bit, right? But all jokes aside, our brains are hardwired to favor what is known because it requires less energy and it feels safer. When we face change, whether it's adopting a new habit or dealing with a major life shift, our minds perceive it as a threat or a loss of control. And this triggers feelings of anxiety and fear as we confront the uncertainty of what's to come. The process of change can also involve grief. You might be asking, grief for what? Grieving the loss of that old way of life, even if that old way of life was unhealthy or unproductive. But that discomfort is a natural part of growth. It's a sign that we are pushing past our established limits to build something new. So, what happens if nothing changes? Well, for a person, when a person avoids change, they often become stagnant in their own personal growth. They may remain in unfulfilling jobs, unhealthy relationships, or struggle with detrimental habits. For instance, someone who refuses to address a lack of physical activity might face a decline in their own health or be faced with a chronic illness over time. That can sometimes lead to a sense of regret or feeling stuck, as that gap between their potential and where they are currently continues to widen. Now, for a system or an organization, a lack of change often leads to irrelevance or shutdown. If a company doesn't innovate, it risks being outpaced by its competitors who will adapt to new technologies, market demands, and consumer preferences. Think about how companies that failed to embrace the digital age, like Blockbuster, become obsolete. Stagnation in a system can also create new inefficiencies. Stagnation in a system can also create inefficiencies and a culture that actually drives away talent. Is the Holy Name Society becoming the new Blockbuster? Are we going to let it become obsolete? And if so, what message is that sending to the generations who came before us, made changes, and opened their hearts and minds for us to be standing where we are today? Now, I know that hearing those questions, could evoke a significant reaction for some of you, which I think speaks to our stages of change. Some of you thought, no way, things are fine how they are, nothing needs to change. Or maybe you're indifferent on it. Maybe when I asked those questions, you thought, eh, we'll see. Or maybe you thought, yeah, I've been thinking that myself. Or yes, I have been saying this for months. Or yeah, I've been trying to branch our group out and grow it. Or maybe you're already making changes and you're thinking this is what it's all about. But wherever you are in those stages, we can ground in our common goal of making sure that the Holy Name Society remains around for generations to come to continue to do this good work. And as long as we align on that, we can move forward with positive change. Remembering what we talked about, it can feel uncomfortable and it can feel different. But different doesn't always mean bad. It doesn't mean bad or wrong. It's just different. And it's not chili cook-off different, it's first date different. Let me explain. When you are at a chili cook-off and someone asks, "Hey, how was that chili?" And you say, well, it was different. Oh, nobody wants to hear that. But when you go on a first date, after all the first dates are the same, where are you from? What school did you go to? What do you do for work? And you get to call your friend and you get to tell them, you know what? This date was different. It was different from the rest. Meaning, different is innovative, it's exciting, it shakes up the status quo in a way that feels positive. And with that said, I have a little experiment for you. So at this time, I'm going to insert the audio clip of the actual presentation that was provided so that you can hear what that experiment was. Okay, let's have it on the color of your choosing. And when you have it, I want you to hold it up. Yes, that's one. All right. So I want you to put your M&M down if it is green, blue, or yellow. All right. So those of you who still have your M&Ms raised, there's a few of you in this room. You are the smartest, the best looking, the most competent and confident individuals in this room for the color of that M&M.
You are superior to your peers in every single way. Oh, please stop it. We liked you before your speech, Dana. You can hold your evidence down. And those of you who did not have a green, blue, or yellow, put yours up again. How did that make you feel when I said that? That's okay. You're probably thinking like, where's she going with this? What the heck is happening? All right, now all of you can eat your M&Ms now. If you'd like to or want to. Right. Sure, go for it. No, you have to pass me. Now, the beautiful thing about M&Ms is they're such a classic candy, right? They're consistent and they're universally chocolate, regardless of what color is on the outside. Regardless of if they were W's, Jim, or if there was a crack or an imperfection, or if that M was smeared on the outside, the taste is the same.
Now, coming back to our speech here after hearing the recording of the M&M experiment, this isn't really about the M&Ms or the M&Ms that those individuals chose. All of that superior, inferior stuff, I made it up. In Galatians, we hear, there is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female, for you are all one in Jesus Christ. And we are really more alike than we are different. And it's what is on the inside that matters. But we can only get there when we accept what's on the outside, regardless of gender, skin color, physical makeup, ability. Now, words are very important. And notice that did not say look past. I said accept. We are the sum of all of our parts. The diversity and the difference, that's what makes us unique. Through acceptance and love, we can strengthen our community. And I can say with full confidence that this is what God wants for us. And this is how we, as the Holy Name Society, will continue to revitalize and continue to maintain a strong presence, doing the work that is so meaningful to so many. It's about seeking out different through curiosity and understanding. I often think about the quote, when you have more than you need, build a longer table, not a higher fence. Now, while it doesn't originate from the Bible, it does embody many themes of generosity, hospitality, and inclusion. Jesus was constantly seeking out others, not making assumptions, and leading with curiosity. This is how we expand. This is how we broaden our circles. When we are living in our purpose and being a true representation of God's love, others can feel it. They may even want to grow closer in Christ because they see how powerful that can be through your example. Here is where the magic happens. It's a combination of walking the walk and talking the talk. So don't just ask, do you want to join the Holy Name Society? Ask them, what would it take for you to join the Holy Name Society? What would make the Holy Name Society a good fit in your life? Asking these questions through a lens of understanding and curiosity means you're taking notes. You're not trying to interject and maybe have a counter offer, but rather seeking to understand what are the gaps, what are the barriers, and how do we close them? It means creating a space where you are open to others' opinions and ideas because you know that is how we are going to continue to learn and grow and innovate. Odds are the more people that you talk to, the more insight you will gain into what is preventing that growth. The key, however, is being open to it and accepting what it could take to move forward. If you continue the same behavior and the same habits, you will get the same outcome. So I'm going to say that again. It's something I say a lot with my clients. If you continue the same behavior and habits, you will continue to get the same outcome. So lean into that change. Now, there's one more important point. Oftentimes, when I help a client make a change, there is a significant conversation around letting go. What is it that you're letting go of? Or sometimes the question is more, what are you holding on to? And it often leads to an important realization that letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means making a choice to move forward and accept what comes with that decision. And that takes a lot of courage. It really does. So, to move forward with this change, start small. One question, one conversation, one action at a time to broaden your circle. Try saying yes in situations where maybe you're used to saying no. Seek out opportunities to be different, see different, live different. Continue to live in your values and be a true representation of His holy name. Be kind to one another, and thank you so very much for tuning in to this recording. Take care. So at this time, I'm going to insert the audio clip of the actual presentation that was provided so that you can hear what that experiment was.